gentrification happened in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah. Hard.
Yep,
We've lost. Atlanta had 3 giant practice spaces for bands, and we've lost
all
all
of
of them
them.
to condos.
Okay, so how big of a problem is the gentrification in there at the moment, or was or has been?
It's pretty bad.
A case example: there is a club called MJQ that's been in the center of Midtown Atlanta for at least 30 years, 20, 25, 30 years.
At least that much.
They built condos around it, and the folks in the condos constantly, from what I've read some, they're calling and making noise complaints that they moved on top of a club. Like that's the, like, yeah, there's a hip hop and rock club and lounge here full of people. It's I guess the suburbanites that are moving to the city want to bring the suburbs with them, and they don't really want to assimilate to city life. So that just as a case example, that's kind of a loose across the board sense in the main city of Atlanta that we get from all this gentrification mess. They've torn down art galleries, venues, and made these live work condos. The condos are untouchable by anyone who could unaffordable by anyone who would work in any of the establishments that are the work portion underneath the condos. It's laughable.
Yeah, like you're not gonna work in, I don't know, the Gap clothing store and be able to afford the live work condo that's upstairs from it, like it, or a McDonald's or whatever little restaurant that's in there. So it's a farce.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's really interesting because I think here in Berlin we talk a lot about gentrification with bands because here the fight is going on now, and it's like well, the same thing. Like even though even before COVID, like clubs were in trouble, and that there's not flat. There's like not enough flats for people, and the prices keep rising. So
Man, yeah, it is not a renter's market here, unfortunately. Like that's unheard of. It's we're the it's what we've kind of seen, just so much investment, foreign investors who are not vested or interested in maintaining the integrity or the history of the neighborhood. Atlanta, I honestly don't know Atlanta history very well. You do. You're a native Atlantan, but I mean they burned down Atlanta.
Well, yeah, during the Civil War, the entire city was basically burnt down. So there's not that many historical structures that are around. I mean that, and there's a lot of historical structures that they didn't even care about, and they're like, oh, there's this giant building, it looks really cool, but we'll just tear it down and make like some modern thing. But I think that probably stemmed from the fact that the city got destroyed, and in the back of your mind, like, well, we don't have any history anyway, so why do we care?
Yeah, like. Who needs this? Buildings that don't quite fall within the historical guidelines to keep, they'll just tear it down and make a homogenized high-rise condo.
It's oddly reflected in so many ways. Like our, how a normal city street, they're in grids. Not Atlanta. Atlanta streets go like this, and then it kind of veers, and it like turns, and then it changes names like about 15 times.
Yeah, I noticed I got lost a lot in there.
Yes, and every year they decide they're going to rename a street. So you're like, wait, what? That's not this. It's really confusing.
Yeah. About 8 years ago, you could get an apartment in Atlanta for like, not a great apartment, but like an affordable musician's apartment for $600 in Midtown in an older building. Now, and now that's about $1,500 US dollars. So like a small single room. I mean, a lot of folks that we know, it's like if you're a musician, it's like, all right, well, we need about 4 people to go in on a roommate situation in a house to make it affordable. And even then, it's very peripheral, where like the middle of Atlanta is just 100-foot, 1,000-unit luxury condos that.
Yeah, because they're like, well, if the rich people can afford to move in, then we don't care. We'll just try to attract the people with a lot of money and the people who actually had any kind of investment in Atlanta to try to be a part of the city and to, work or create or just live. Like everybody just pretty much got driven out.
Yeah, you get to outside of our 285 is the perimeter where the Atlanta stops, and it turns into it's the official line between Atlanta and the suburbs. So a lot of folks have been squeezed out.
If I understand correctly, like Atlanta at least used to be like this cultural hub that that would like draw in that part of USA, like creative people would be drawn to Atlanta because it was like the biggest city around. So is that still the case, or was it ever, or did I misunderstand something?
Ish, we're definitely outside of. I mean, Miami is its own world, but in the Southeast, we're definitely the biggest city.
I mean, the hip hop scene here has historically been huge. And it's also like there's really nothing close to Atlanta. Like Atlanta, Georgia, it's like a little island. So you go outside of Atlanta, and it's sometimes a little bit scary. You go, some of the mountain folk, you're like, they might shoot me because
you're not white. Like we can drive 20 to 30 minutes outside of Atlanta, or 20 from the center of Atlanta and drive for 20 minutes and be, I don't know how it impacts the world, but at least in the US, in 20 minutes from Atlanta, you can see rebel Confederate flags, that, the international or the national sign of racial hatred, proudly flying in people's yards. Like, oh, wow, okay.
In more recent, those the Confederate flags and the Trump flags go hand in hand. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So how is the music scene in the city? Like, what's the hip hop scene is the strongest then?
Yeah, hip hop is. Yeah, that's
like the big moneymaker, and as far as like kind of putting Atlanta on the map thing. As far as rock or like more alternative, I guess, based stuff that we're in,
it's a small but hungry scene. Like the hip hop is where the community lies. The metal and rock and experimental electronic stuff, that's let's say a decent sized venue with a bunch of strong locals could bring out on a Tuesday night 75 people in the crowd, would be a good turnout for an all locals late Tuesday night show, right? 75, 100 people maybe. Like that would be that's kind of how small, medium cult style rock shows go.
I mean, the bigger shows you can get a few hundred people.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty, in comparison to other scenes, I guess it's a pretty small community. So everybody knows each other. There's not. I mean, there's a lot of bands, but there's not that many bands if you compare it to
Chicago, New York,
or whatnot.
We may have the world-class airport, but we don't have the world-class rock scene yet.